What is up, YouTube? This is World of War Black Ops Pro, and with the more recent Call of Duty games, like Ghost, Advanced Warfare, and even Black Ops 3, it seems like Call of Duty is dying. It seems like these games just keep getting more disappointing and bringing more disappointment to the fan base as we actually play the games and we see how much BS is in the game, and we stop playing the game, we return the game a week after buying it, and just the player counts drop, the sales drop. It just seems like Call of Duty's dying, and that something should kick COD off its throne as the best-selling FPS game and become a COD killer. However, unfortunately, there are no true COD killers on the market. Some people may say games like Timefall and Battlefield 4 are, but those games fell short in killing Call of Duty. In fact, very short. Now, what's getting the one COD killer, or so-called COD killer, Battlefield 4? Battlefield 4 is a modern shooter. See, it takes place with modern weapons and with modern vehicles, helicopters and tanks and all this other stuff. And it's more relatable to the average gamer because it takes place in a more modern time and you can relate to it. Whereas a game with jetpacks like Black Ops 3 or Advanced Warfare seems way too futuristic and just doesn't really register with the average gamer. However, Battlefield 4 is a different type of game, even though it is an FPS game, so technically it's in the same genre, but Battlefield 4 plays much differently than COD, and there's a reason why it will never catch on with the casual gamer as much as Call of Duty has. Because in Battlefield's realistic, but realism comes at a price, because realism is a double-edged sword. Because realism, on one hand, yes, it makes the game more relatable, and it draws in a more mature audience. Whereas Call of Duty is just catered to kids, Black Ops 2 looks like a cartoon, and then Black Ops 3, you're jumping around, and it also looks kind of cartoony. But it also adds more of a skill gap, because in Battlefield, you actually have to worry about things like bullet drop and bullet velocity and all this other stuff, and you also got a bunch of creative class attachments that are confusing to the average gamer. Especially, like in Call of Duty, you have a foregrip, but in Battlefield, you have an angle grip, you have a potato grip, you have a stubby grip, you have just a regular vertical grip. So there's a bunch of different grips and other mechanics in the game that casuals are less likely to understand. Because at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind that a casual gamer is the type of gamer who goes to school or works the 9 to 5 and then comes home and wants to play a few hours of COD, and they don't have time to learn every single gun and to learn every single stat, and they just want to pick up something, pick up any type of gun and just have fun. And they're going to do whatever, it is to make them have fun. With these realistic mechanics, such as the bullet velocity and drop, it really adds kind of a skill gap because you have to aim in front of your enemy to hit a moving target. You have to aim above your enemy if you're at a distance, and it makes it hard for the casual gamer because you have to calculate what you're doing and you have to think about things before you do them. And most casuals, when they get home and they want to relax, they don't want to think because thinking is like work, and they don't want to play a game that makes it feel like work. So that's why they gravitate towards games like Call of Duty. It's much easier to play a game where all you have to do is push left trigger, right trigger, and your bullets travel in a perfectly straight line at an infinite speed, which means that your bullet hits its mark the moment you pull the trigger, than to play a game which you actually have to calculate the gravity's effect on your bullet, and you have to calculate how long it's going to take your bullet to reach its intended target. So casuals don't like the skill gap in Battlefield 4 because Battlefield 4, the better players dominate the weaker players, and if you're a weak player, there's nothing to help you. Whereas in COD, you got support streaks, you got specialist abilities in Black Ops 3 now, you got all this stuff that's designed to help the casual gamer. Now, Battlefield Hardline tried to compress the skill gap and make it easier for these COD gamers to get into Battlefield. A few things what Battlefield Hardline did was make the maps really small. By making the maps really small, it feels more like COD because Battlefield maps are extremely big. And an extremely big map plays pretty slow. Even if you had 64 players onto the map, it still plays very slow, and in a 30-minute match, you may only get, a handful of kills, whereas in COD, you're guaranteed to get a bunch of kills as long as you play hard. So there, it's much more fast-paced, and that's what the casuals tend to like. They tend to like fast-paced games. But Hardline fell short of COD. See, COD has kill streaks, and COD gives you a reason to keep going on your streak. Because in Battlefield, yeah, you could get a 10 kill streak, but at the end of the day, what's it mean? Sure, you rank up, but rank up to do what? You don't have to rank up to unlock that one perk you want, and you just don't feel very compensated for getting that kill streak. When you get 10 kill streak in COD, maybe you expect like an AC-130 or a chopper gunner, but in Battlefield, you just do it just because that's what you're supposed to do. There's really nothing to reward you. And COD wouldn't be as big today if it wasn't for the kill streaks. The kill streaks really made COD, and without kill streaks, COD is nothing, essentially. Because before COD 4, COD was just an average shooter, but COD 4's kill streaks really added a different element to Call of Duty. But in terms of Hardline, they wanted to steal the fan base from COD because COD, of course, is pretty much dying. Advanced Warfare wasn't great. Not too many people liked it, so DICE wanted to capitalize on this opportunity to steal some customers from Activision. Yeah, but didn't work out too well because, again, the casual gamer isn't really into a first-person shooter without kill streaks. And that's what really would make COD, and DICE doesn't really seem to understand that. So not only did it displease COD fans, but it also fell short of Battlefield 4's hardcore fan base's expectations. Because Hardline is not Battlefield. It doesn't have that big map feel like other Battlefield games do. It doesn't have, maps that are designed for vehicles. Because Battlefield fans want a game that feels like Battlefield. They don't want a game that's catered to the COD fanboys. So, in reality, what's really keeping many players away from Battlefield is that the skill gap is just too hard to overcome. There's not enough crutches in Battlefield to help weaker players, dominate against good players. Because in Call of Duty, a noob can kill a pro player easily. But in Battlefield, it takes a lot more skill, and that's what casual gamers don't really look forward to when they pick up a FPS game. So the only true COD killer could be an FPS game that's set in the modern era that feels like Call of Duty. It has kill streaks, it has a reason to keep going, but at the end of the day, it's got to be realistic. It's got to have like some sense of realism so you can relate to it. But until that happens, Call of Duty will continue to sell millions upon millions of copies, even though the game might be complete garbage. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the commentary. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. This has been World of War, and see you guys later.